This is Just Nigeria coming up on the program. Nigeria's economy in recession. We explain what this means and how it affects you. Also, oral hygiene. We'll show you the proper way to care for your teeth. And creativity at its finest. We'll meet the visual artist creating beauty out of nails. Plus,
my name is Emerson Oka. Check me out.
The entrepreneur leveraging technology to combat food insecurity in Africa. Hello and welcome to Gist Nigeria from the BBC and Channels TV. I am Wale Fakile. Our top story this week. The National Bureau of Statistics recently announced that Nigeria's economy has officially slipped into a recession. This was concluded after the country's gross domestic product contracted for the second consecutive quarter. The recession has been blamed on the COVID-19 pandemic and low oil prices. So, what exactly does it mean to be in a recession? How does this affect you and how do you manage your resources? Ajoke Ulote answers these questions in this explainer. Have a look.
In November 2020, federal authorities announced that Nigeria has slipped into another recession, the second in the last 5 years.
Nigeria had come out of a recession which started around 2016, and we're still struggling to get to where we used to be. Prior to that recession, Nigeria used to grow on the average around 6%. As of 2019, we're growing around 2.27%. Previously, 2018, around 1.91%. So we really had a fragile economy, and we're hoping to make gains and get to the 5% growth rate target.
Sadly for the economy, the 5% growth rate target didn't happen. Instead, the GDP contracted. The National Bureau of Statistics reports that the country's gross domestic product recorded a growth rate of minus 3.62% in the third quarter of 2020, a second contraction following the minus 6.10% recorded in the second quarter. This decline in GDP for 2 consecutive quarters brings the country into full-blown recession. But this comes as no shock. Years of sustained decline in crude oil prices, productivity, rising inflation and months of lockdown added to a ban on international travel and trade, all brought on by the coronavirus pandemic, already had experts projecting the worst.
Now, with this COVID, the fear is that we might enter into another recession. However, this recession is going to be global in nature, so it's not like we are alone in this.
While we may not be alone in this new recession, the extent of it would vary from one country to another. In June, the World Bank predicted that the global economy would shrink by 5.2% this year, representing the deepest recession since the Second World War. Developing countries like Nigeria are expected to shrink by 2.5%. But what does this mean for Nigerians?
Impacts of a recession will be unemployment, reduction in output, people are producing less, would also be a lot of government intervention because you have a lot of policies coming out to try and kickstart the economy. But all in all, it's basically people trying to pick themselves up in whatever way they can. Another huge impact of the recession could also be insecurity because as people don't have jobs and they are hungry, then you can find people doing desperate things just to eat.
Insecurity, lack of infrastructure, and an enabling environment for investments to thrive are only a few of the problems that have bedeviled the Nigerian economy over the years. Still, it will suffice to ask, how did we get here?
Unfortunately, a combination of factors, a dip in the prices of petroleum products globally in the last 2 years or so. It's been a big crisis for a petrol-dependent country like Nigeria. The COVID-19 pandemic has been a major driver of recession around the world, and all the major economies in the world are actually in this stage, actually much more earlier. Yes, the implication is actually means more poverty, more exclusion, more unemployment, and that's basically what it is.
But with data showing that many Nigerians are already living below the poverty line, how much doom will this spell?
Recession conversations are largely in 3 spaces. The space of policy analysts, the space of the media, and the space of politicians. But for the space of the poor, the reality is that their condition before last week announcement and their condition this week during recession is much different. And that's, for me, is what, as a people, as development people, we should be interrogating. Why is it that it doesn't make any difference?
If you've already been struggling to eat every day, the struggle basically continues. The risk of a recession is for those that were almost at the point where they're stable. It could actually drop them into that poverty, below the poverty level, right? But for the person that is already poor, he always has to struggle. He always has to pray for the next meal. He always has to hustle for the next meal. So the hustle literally continues. For us, the bad part is the fact that we're supposed to be trying to pull those people out, but now we are going to be trying to prevent people from getting below that poverty line.
As scary as that may sound, government assures it has put in place safety nets to ensure that this recession does not send more people into poverty.
We have been able to release a large volume of capital funding into ministries, departments, and agencies, enabling a lot of works, public works going across simultaneously all over the country. So how we will maintain this is to make sure we continue to implement the ESP as it is planned. It will help us to exit recession. It will help us reset the country back on the path of growth and on a growth that is sustainable.
Beyond all that, federal authorities are also projecting that this recession will be short-lived. But how realistic is this projection considering the current character of the economy?
This month, next month, and January will be a massive harvest in some places. Of course, we know that in some parts of the country also food production has been badly affected by insecurity, particularly in the Northwest. So they are not looking at that dimension of it. They're probably thinking that harvest, we do that. And then number two, they are going to reopen the borders probably, and then massive importations will increase. Number three, they have one of our major imports in the country, used cars and other related things. They are beginning to review port charges in the country, and therefore there will be increase in some of those things. And so they can easily make some projections around this. And particularly again, if you look at the numbers, the drop in the growth rate, they just did that statistics and found that, okay, if we grow by this quarter at a particular level and the next quarter, even if it is very small, the moment we begin to record positive growth, then if no matter how small it is, then you can say you're out of recession.
So, what should we be doing as Nigerians to partner with government in achieving a quick exit from this recession?
There is no development without industrialization. So if we don't industrialize, we can't. That's the major way we can diversify. And I think that Nigerians, and I'm sorry, we are probably even hostile to industrialization because the character of our consumption and what we need, particularly our celebration of foreign product kind of consumption pattern, does not even create the culture of industrialization.
We are on the right track in terms of low interest rates, in terms of the right policies and all that. It's just that people need to come forward and say what they need with respect to their sectors and get the government to agree to that. So for specific sectors, you come and say what kind of support the government can give you. Once you get that support, you're on the right track. It's just a matter of time and we'll pull ourselves out of it.
The need to revive the Nigerian economy has become crucial for not just the government, but everyone in order to prevent the country's GDP from further plunging into a full-scale economic depression.